When I was finishing high school, I knew I wanted to go to college, and I knew what I didn't want to do, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My brother and his friends, who spent a lot of time at our house, were all in the physics department at Carnegie Tech, and that sounded to me like a pretty good thing to do, so I decided I wanted to be in the physics department at Carnegie Tech. And I was the only woman. When I went into my freshman chemistry lecture, there must have been 100 or 150 students in the room. And because we were seated alphabetically, and my name began with O, which is the 16th letter in the alphabet, I was right smack in the middle of that room. So I had to climb up the stairs and over about half the seats, and I was really in the center of the hall. And everyone around me was a man. There was no trouble with my being a woman among the men. They made me carry my own books, open the doors myself. They didn't treat me any differently than they treated each other, and that's the way I wanted it. When I went to a tea at Pennsylvania College for Women, I was a high school senior, the dean of women there told us that every girl in their senior class was engaged by the time graduation came. And subsequent to that tea, I got a letter from PCW offering me a full scholarship and saying that I would be the Phi Beta Kappa scholar if I came. And I did not want to be at a school where every girl in the senior class was engaged. It just wasn't my style. So, of course, I was married before I finished college. And it just evolved. It was not something that I was looking for. We just matched each other perfectly. And we stayed married for 62 years, so that's pretty good. When I finished at Tech, I went to New York because Lenny wanted to live in New York. And from June of 1941 till September, I spent every day job hunting, and all kinds of discrimination. When I went to Bell Labs for a job interview, they said to me, "We can put you in the library." When I went to Westinghouse Elevator with a letter of introduction from a vice president of Westinghouse here in Pittsburgh, the man said, "I couldn't possibly put you in the back with those men. They would make mincemeat out of you." When Lenny got his job at the War Research Lab of Columbia, and I ended up at Memorial Hospital, he never spoke about what he was doing. And I had no idea of what he was doing. And I was working with radioactive isotopes, and every 6 months, he had to have his draft deferment extended. And one night we had theater tickets, and he had to go to the draft board. And I went to the theater with my friends, and he came in after we were seated, and at intermission, one of my friends, in a very loud voice, said, "I know what you're working on. You're working on that atomic bomb that the Germans are talking about." And I said, "Florence, it's not, no, he's not. The atomic bomb isn't possible." But I was the physicist in the family, so I convinced everybody it wasn't possible. And then on July 16th, when I was working at Memorial Hospital, Lenny called me, and he said, "Listen to the news." And the news was that they had just tested the first atomic bomb in the West. So it was just amazing. When I went to the city on the train in the morning, there was one other woman who was Dorothy Harth, who was a little older than I was, and she worked in the city. There were no women working professionally in those days. They were all home in Croton, and I was on the train with the men. And it was still very much a closed world. But I just kept going because that's what I needed to make myself a whole person. I wouldn't have been happy if I had to drop that. I had an attitude which was not feminist, because when Lenny suggested to me that I join the Women's Engineering Society, I wouldn't do that. I didn't want to be a woman. I wanted to be an equal. I wanted to be an engineer, but not a woman engineer. I wanted to be accepted the way anybody else should be accepted, not as a woman. So I never took the typical feminist attitude of trying to build women. I just wanted people to accept me on the same level. And that was a different attitude than the people who started the feminist revolution. I'm not part of that.
Do you have a sense of what your personal greatest accomplishments are?
My kids. My kids are my greatest accomplishments. All three of them have grown up into successful careers, and they all admit that they learned an awful lot of what they do from me. So that's my greatest accomplishment.